Information-fueled.
Opinion-driven.
This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
7:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Happy Friday to you, friends. March 3rd of 2025, Donald Trump had a lot to say about Ukraine. There's a lot of news regarding Ukraine. I'm going to get to all of it right now because Donald Trump yesterday, you know, it is so fascinating to watch the Democrats as they just hyperventilate and just become nuts over everything that President Trump, when the reality is that things that Donald Trump is saying are things that Democrats themselves have been saying for years. For example, I want you to listen to this soundbite, Donald Trump talking about nuclear weapons.
I will say that we've made a lot of progress with Ukraine and a lot of progress with Russia over the last couple of days. And it'd be great to bring that to an end so we don't have to talk that way about nuclear. It'd be great if everybody would get rid of their nuclear weapons. You know, we have Russia and us have by far the most. China will have an equal amount within 4 or 5 years. And it would be great if we could all denuclearize, because the power of nuclear weapons is crazy. And, you know, I was very far along the process with Russia, despite the Russia hoax, which didn't make it easy. It was a total hoax, a total rigged hoax by some bad people. But despite that, I was very close to having a program with Russia, denuclearization, and we we're going to get China. I spoke to President Xi about it, and he would have been very happy to have gone along with it. But bad things happened, like an election that was rigged happened, and so we had to come back 4 years later. But I would very much like to start those talks.
I mean, you know, Democrats have always been the ones to fight, you know, nuclear proliferation, and now here we are. They are hating everything that Donald Trump says, and so it'll be interesting to see if they come out. And as the president of the United States is calling for denuclearization, I wonder if the Democrats hate that as well. By the way, Giorgia Meloni is Italy's prime minister. Now, she is saying and proposing extending NATO's Article 5 to Ukraine without giving it NATO memberships. She says that it would be a guarantee of stable, lasting, effective security. Now, Article 5 protections would mean that if Russia attacks Ukraine, which they have, then they would be protected by the NATO nations, just like as if they were members. And so I don't know if she's meaning to say or setting up a situation where she would be obligating all of the NATO members to become engaged in a war with Russia, which could ultimately lead to, obviously, World War III. But that's what Italy is doing. And clearly this would be a major issue for Russia and could torpedo any progress that Donald Trump has made towards lasting peace, because that is what Donald Trump wants. Meantime, yes, Trump has paused all weapons shipments to Ukraine until Zelensky can figure out how he really feels about a path to peace.
It is a pause. Exactly what he said from the beginning. Pause pending a true commitment to a path to peace.
That is, of course, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Now, the reason why that is important is because Zelensky has been all over the place with this. He'll sign the minerals deal. He won't sign the mineral deal. He's regretful about that Oval Office meeting, but he won't apologize, saying the end of the war is a long way off. I mean, every time you turn around, Zelensky is saying something else that screws up any possible deal.
President paying a very keen eye to precisely what the Ukrainians are saying and doing about committing to that peace process. And we're very encouraged by the signs we're seeing. Ultimately, he will make the determination. But it is a pause for now.
So there you have it. Now, Zelensky, as you know, he's been in Europe, had a big meeting with all of these European leaders. I'm going to cut to the chase on this. Zelensky has left Europe without a deal, without any deal to bring in more money for the war. Remember that you had the leaders of Germany, you had the leaders of France. All these people were saying, and I played you the sound bites, all these people were saying, well, we're going to step up because the United States won't. Zelensky has left Europe without a funding deal to continue the war. So now you have all of these European countries meeting with Zelensky over the last couple of days. They're trying to put together this defense plan without the level of support that they're used to. Because, the United States, we're always there, and now we're not. And so this is their opportunity to step up, and clearly they were unable to come up with a deal. Here's the headline from the meetings. These European nations met with Zelensky. They have ended without a deal for more funding for Ukraine. So now you know what's going to happen, right? Zelensky's going to come back, crawling back to Donald Trump. And remember what Trump wants. Trump wants an actual apology. Do you know what's going to be funny? If Zelensky has to come crawling back to the White House and he actually wears a suit. That is going to be funny. I can't wait to see that. By the way, France's President Emmanuel Macron is now saying that they will consider protecting Europe with nuclear weapons. So you've got Trump, the conservative, who is talking about denuclearization, and you've got Emmanuel Macron, the liberal, who is talking about nuclear weapons. This is from the Associated Press. France will consider extending the protection of its nuclear arsenal to its allies. French President Emmanuel Macron saying on Wednesday, while warning that Europe needs to be ready for the United States to not remain by our side in the Ukraine-Russia war. Russia called those comments, by the way, a threat. So now you've got Emmanuel Macron threatening to use nuclear weapons, and Russia, who also has nuclear weapons, they're paying attention to those comments. So the U.S. president is calling for less nuclear weapons, and you've got all of these European liberals basically threatening more. Meantime, Donald Trump was asked yesterday in the Oval Office when he thinks that things will happen with Zelensky. When is this all going to come to a head? And Trump says, well, it's probably going to happen soon.
Well, I think what's going to happen is Ukraine wants to make a deal because I don't think they have a choice. I also think that Russia wants to make a deal because in a different way that only I know, they have no choice either.
Wasn't that an interesting comment where Trump says Russia has to make a deal, but only I know why Russia has to make a deal? I thought that was really an interesting comment from the president. They have to come to a deal for reasons that only he knows about. Meantime, you do know that Trump has temporarily paused giving intel to Ukraine. I do have an update to that story, pretty big one as well. That is coming up after the traffic. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. President Donald Trump continues to look for a way to end the bloodshed and the meat grinder that is the war between Ukraine and Russia. Donald Trump has temporarily paused giving not only weapons, but also intel to Ukraine as President Trump tries to push them towards peace. Now we hear that Europe has stopped sharing intel with us. Is that true or is that fake news? Tulsi Gabbard.
No. I can tell you just today alone, I met with two different senior intelligence leaders from Europe who came here to visit, to introduce themselves and to say, hey, we really look forward to continuing to work with you. I've met with other European leaders earlier this week who've come to Washington, D.C. for the same reason, really continuing to strengthen that relationship and letting us know how much they rely on us for our support and the intelligence that we share.
So part of what Donald Trump is trying to do is maintain maintain relationships with Russia, with Ukraine, of course, obviously, and with Europe. And it's amazing. Have you thought about this way? Where Trump is putting America first, and he is put on full blast, all this negativity coming his way. But Zelensky puts Ukraine first, and he is some sort of a worldwide hero that is being worshipped by Europe. I never thought I would see the day where putting America first, putting American citizens first, like Donald Trump is, would be a reason to put him on full blast like the media and the Democrats have done. Here's more from Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence.
President Trump is the peace president, and he is putting the interests of the American people and our taxpayers first and foremost. This is something that he campaigned on, that he promised the American people that he would deliver.
Yep.
And so when you look at the decisions that he's made over the last 45 days that he's been in office, he has been very consistent and very focused on keeping those promises and delivering very real and historically quick results.
So, and one of the things that she points it out, Tulsi Gabbard points out, is that Trump is looking out for the taxpayers of America. Now, the reason why that is important is because this is literally something that he campaigned on. Ending the war in Russia and Ukraine. And the people voted for this. And yesterday I played you the audio, told you the story that Biden's managing of Ukraine was at like minus 22% according to the polling. And Donald Trump was up 2. So people like the path that Donald Trump is on. And so, of course, the one of the things that we keep hearing and seeing is this accusation that Donald Trump and the United States were nothing but a bunch of Putin puppets and the rest of that nonsense. And it is nonsense saying that we're cozying up to Vladimir Putin. And the thing is that the name calling is clearly not working. It is simply not working. But they keep trying to do the same thing. And these Trump critics with the name calling, it's not going to fly. It's not going to wash with the American people. Common sense is on Donald Trump's side, and clearly the man simply wants to save lives.
They accuse us of being Russian assets or puppets of Putin. It really is quite disgusting in my own view, and really speaks to the influence that the warmongers, the military-industrial complex, has. They can't answer to really what President Trump's call is for peace. So instead, they throw out these smears and lies and accusations that I think the American people are seeing right through.
Now, you were at the airport for the delivery of the ISIS.
So there you go. That is Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence on Laura Ingram's show. So the headlines from this segment, because I know I threw a lot at you, but there's a lot of news. Europe meets with Zelensky, but they came to no conclusion on more funding. Zelensky essentially leaving Europe empty-handed this trip around. That's number one. Number two, France is now talking about nuclear deterrence against Russia. Meantime, our own President Donald Trump is talking about trying to end nuclear weapons as we know it. Obviously, I don't believe that that's ever going to happen, but it is like opposite day in America, where the Republican, the conservative, is trying to get us to fewer nuclear weapons, maybe no nuclear weapons, and all the liberals here in America and across the world, they want more nuclear weapons. It is absolutely insane. 7:20 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.